Hi and welcome back to another Sketchbook Prompt tutorial. Today we're doing an outfit in line. And so the goal will be to work on your line quality, your thick and thin line. We chose an outfit because it's kind of organic, there's lots of folds and just it's a lot of fun to mess around with line in an outfit. So this is how mine turned out. And I chose to do different colors so that I could choose a different color for each item. You could just do the whole thing with one color. You could use marker, you could use pen, you could use pencil. You're going to want to pick something that you can be a bit expressive with. So the markers I chose were Erin Condren fine tip markers, and you can get a very thin line with them and a very thick line with them by holding them on their side, which you can't necessarily do with certain drawing materials. So a pencil would be excellent for today's activity, and you can also use Crayola marker or something that can get pretty expressive like that as well. All right, let's dive in. So to begin, I've decided you can do this in any pen, but I've decided to use the Erin Condren fine tip markers because that way I can easily go between thick and thin line, which is a little harder to do with, say, a Sharpie. You could use a Crayola marker because you can get really thick and thin with that. You could absolutely just use regular pen, even a ballpoint pen. You're just going to have to go over lines that you want to be darker. You have to go over them a couple times. Whereas with a pen like these, I should be able to make it thick and thin, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So I would recommend doing a little test. You can see how thin of a line I can get with this, and then by just moving it on its side a little bit more, you can see the thick line that I can achieve. So this is the marker that I'm going to start with, and I'm going to just pick a different color for each of the items. And we've already learned several different types of line. We learned together, so if you haven't done these other exercises, you might go do those first, but you don't have to. I just want to show you, though, that we have learned contour lines, which are lines that follow the shape of whatever we're drawing to try to emphasize the form that it's 3D. And these are some more contour lines. Cross contour as well, where we are doing more perpendicular. And blind contour, where we're not even looking at our page. We're just practicing very close observation of the subject matter. And this is a really, really fun one. So you could go ahead and do that today if you wanted to do the outfit in blind contour. There's another blind contour plant. And then we had continuous contour, continuous line rather, where you do not lift the pen. You can look at your page and you're looking at the subject. So things line up a lot better, but you kind of have to backtrack on your line a bunch, and that would be a really good option for today's drawing as well, is that continuous line. Is just a really fun exercise. I'm going to not do that. I'm going to do another kind. You could just call it contour, or you could call it modified contour, and that is simply where I can look at my subject and I can look at my page and I can lift my drawing implement off and on. And you know what? I'm really not going to worry about perfection with this one. I'm truly just going to have fun. I'm going to start at the top, but you can start anywhere. And my line is pretty thin to start. You can see how quickly this marker sort of bleeds into the page and creates heavy dots and things. And that's neat. It's just it's not like a bad thing, but it is a condition of this particular medium, so you have to kind of be aware of what that means for your drawing. So I'm going to try not to hold my pen on the page too much unless I'm actually making a line and moving it around. Otherwise, it is going to have all those little dots and stuff. And you could do this in pencil first if you are not as confident a drawer. I recommend just doing it in pencil first. But the reason I'm not is because I'm okay with a kind of a wonky, expressive look. And that's kind of the style I'm going for with this particular drawing. So I'm just kind of picking my way around the lines. And I will worry about making some thick and thin later. The more comfortable you become at drawing, the better you'll get at doing expressive thick and thin line as you go. That's the back. And then the front needs to come down here. So I arranged my outfit on the bed, and then I took a picture of it and I'm drawing from the picture. You could draw from life. It's just going to be a little harder trying to prop yourself up over your stuff, but drawing from life is a very important skill and one that you can learn a lot from. So if you want to challenge yourself that way, go for it for this. It's going to be a great one to look at from life. So I'm kind of doing like creases of the clothing in a almost an implied line, like a stuttering line, one that's not solid. And I'm also going to put in all the wrinkles and stuff. That's part of why this assignment is an outfit in line, because clothing and fabric is just really interesting and fun to do in line drawing. And then that way you're not shading everything, you're just sketching out all of the wrinkles and fluctuations in the fabric and such. So as you can see right now, I'm kind of doing structure first. I'm doing a couple folds where it's necessary, but for the most part, I'm trying to do main lines first, and then I'll go back in and add all of the ripples and wrinkles and all that later. I'm adding kind of a double line where there's seams and things. And I don't think I'm going to add shading, but you could by doing like cross hatching and things like that. That's a fun way to shade when you're using a marker. You can also do this exercise in pencil. So there's nothing keeping you from doing thick and thin and really interesting line drawings in pencil. It's very common as you're learning to draw. I chose these overalls because they're really weird, and structurally they're kind of crazy. They're very soft fabric, and so I thought that would be interesting, maybe more interesting than jeans, which would lay flat and I'd only be doing like the seams of where things were sewn. In this one I have a lot of wrinkles. So there's so many areas where I could be shading, but I'm not. I'm just kind of outlining where those pieces go. And I'm gonna move, I'll probably move my shorts up. I mean shoes. I'm okay with making a couple mistakes about where the lines go. So we could end like that. I could make these like short overalls, that's an option. So I'm gonna add some wrinkles now. You could change your color of marker for this. I'm going to do the same marker, so I'm doing creases, and it might look a bit weird because you're not shading it in, and if you feel like that's going to help your drawing, you can, but my goal is to express everything today in line. So I'm going to try to stay away from shading today. We'll see if I'm successful. Notice, so I'm skipping. The line has gaps in it, and I'm just doing that because it's not a structural line, it's like a wrinkle. So lots of wrinkles, and then if I want to, I really do think it'll be stronger if we have varying line quality. And when we say line quality, we mean like thick and thin, dark and light. So varying the line quality will make the drawing better. So in this case, that means holding my marker on its side to get a thicker line, and I'm going to make a stylistic choice that the outside of this item of clothing will be thicker than the inside wrinkles, and kind of differentiating what line shows the form of the object and what line is showing shadow and such in between. So I'm going to do that. So where this line is crossing, that is part of the structure right here. So I'm going to include that. It's not like I'm only doing the outline of the object itself. I'm just doing any part that's part of the structure. Like this is a piece and it's being wrapped around here. These are the tails, and then this is the top of the piece. See, I'm not doing this interior line. That's like a seam. I'm not going to do that. And I could maybe do a couple of things up here, like around the pocket. You could do kind of dotted line to show sewn edges if you wanted. I'm going to do it to the other one as well, just for consistency. Yep, and then I think let's emphasize this seam across here, and then the seam down the middle as well. That's literally a sewn seam. So I'm making it thicker, but I'm also staggering it because it's just a seam. So I'm going to finish the bottom of them. They are a little bit short. I might have overemphasized that just now. That's okay. And they have a seam coming in here. And here, I really like that. Thick and thin line, showing where some of the shadow is. You could, if you want, you could reinforce some of the bigger creases, but you don't have to. I think I'm going to do just a couple. I don't want to make it too confusing, but there's some really deep folds in here that I think would look good if they were emphasized. Like right in here, it's very dark. So you can pick which ones. I would say make sure not to do them all, but emphasizing a couple is going to look really interesting. And then I've got a bunch of like creases down here, almost like they were ironed in or the fabric got folded. So I'm adding in a couple of those really lightly. And then I'm going to pause before I overwork it. I'm going to leave it like that and switch to the burgundy for my t-shirt, which is underneath these guys. And I'm going to keep it overlapped. I also have a picture of the t-shirt next to me. The picture that I took does not include the left side. So I took another one, which I may or may not share with you. I really want you to try to do this exercise with your own clothes. It's more interesting. You're creating a memory, a record of your wardrobe, which we know changes, and sometimes we end up with some stuff, whether they're mementos or whatever, that stay with us for a long time. But a lot of the time our outfits change over the years, and it's kind of fun to look back and remember, like, oh wow, I remember wearing that hoodie all through high school, or yikes, I wore that a lot in college. There's certain clothes I wore an awful lot just because of comfort. I'm one of those people who just keeps picking the same outfit over and over again. So my t-shirt has a crease down the center. It has some folds over here in the side. And some up here. Some are creases, some are full-on folds. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the overalls, and I'm going to emphasize the outside. Just a stylistic choice. These markers work so well for getting some thick and thin line. Once again, they are the Erin Condren fine tip markers. I don't believe they are waterproof, so you can't like put watercolor over top of them or anything crazy like that. I'm suggesting some text here on the shirt without actually writing it. Got some shadow in here and some of the bigger creases, just like in the pants. The deeper or darker folds and creases are going to get a little bit more emphasis from me. I'm so tempted to shade in the shadow, and I'm not going to. I'm going to resist. What else can I add? There's a little logo on the breast pocket-ish area here, and maybe just have it show up a little bit through here to show that overlap. And I really, even though it's smooth here, I need to add more shadow. All right, moving on. Moving on to the shoes. This one might be the hard part. Might test some colors. I've got really pale purple shoes. I'm gonna go with the paler one, and then I can always use a bit of the darker, actual darker color marker. That could be cool. Okay, I have zoomed in a little bit on the shoes. I'm gonna plop them right here. They, in the photo, they did overlap the pants, but I didn't leave any place for them to overlap. So whoops, we're not gonna do that. And I'm gonna try to get the size close to right. I've got big feet, but if I get the size wrong, it's not gonna be the end of the world. No one's gonna know. As long as they're not teeny tiny, I think they'll be believable. So I'm paying attention to where the opening of the shoe is and the shapes were at a bit of an angle so I can see the side of my shoe a little. And then it's kind of hard to do in pen first without pencil, because you've got to kind of think what's on top. So I have to draw the laces first because they're on top, like they go over the side of the shoe here, and I didn't quite leave space. It's okay if some of your lines overlap. It's not really going to take away from the overall effect, I don't think. So as I suspected, I kind of got this wrong, but the shoe does curve here, so let me try to keep going with the laces. I'm struggling a little with the laces. I'm going to generalize just a teensy bit with the like crisscross of them. It's just kind of a complex subject to do for the first time in pen without doing it in pencil first. I think I've got it looking kind of how I want it to. And it looks a bit weird, but I don't care, it's okay. Like, I think the shoe shape should go out here, and then in, so I'm gonna let it overlap. I'm not super happy about that. It's not ideal, but we are learning as we go. And I thought I kind of counted for that. Look how big this shoe is. This is insane. Like, it's half the size of my t-shirt. Big feet. Oh well. That's okay. And I'm gonna kind of like go over some of the lines near the laces where it's like indented to kind of make it darker. I'm gonna add a tongue here. And the inside is dark and it has some lettering in it, as does right here. And the other shoe is kind of overlapping it. So I think it's okay, actually. I'm going to start the strategy right now. I think it's okay to kind of do light sketch marks before you're committing to the line. I don't think we're going to be able to see that much. So the edge of the shoe, a little darker. Same with the inside. And I'm doing the tops of the laces first. And then I'll go in and add the crisscross underneath. I'm going to keep it very basic because it's a little overwhelming. So I'm not worrying about perfection here. I'm just adding a couple marks that look plausible. Here are my fake letters on the inside. So they're not great. I think the shoes were the hardest part so far, actually. I'm so tempted to shade it in, but I'm not going to. Just a couple lines there is all we need to show creases and such. I am kind of going over my line in places to create a darker line. You could, this is that instance that I said you could literally switch to a darker marker. I kind of like the look of each thing being its own color. And then I was going to add a hat. You could stop there. I kind of like the three things, but I'll be brave and add a hat, and then we'll be done. It's that simple. It's just a like fun little thing. If you were trying to develop a sketchbook practice and sketch every day, this would be really fun because you could document real quick what you've been wearing every day, your work outfits or whatnot. I've also done this to kind of daydream about outfits or certain items I wanted to buy but didn't own. And that's been really fun to do. So I've got this sort of structural shape of the hat, but then I also have these little lines, these little like white. And I don't think I'm going to go to the trouble of writing out the logo or anything. Just gonna make a couple squiggles and block in that yes, the logo is kind of right here on the front of the hat, and leave it at that. That's kind of cool. Ooh, I like the addition of a couple lines around it. That's fun. It's weird the way you just kind of come up with certain things on the fly, but I quite like that. I think I'm going to add a couple of those elsewhere so it looks more intentional. Just for fun. Why not? Stylistic lines, I guess we could call them. I give it kind of like a weird quality. Yeah, there you have it. Little outfit in line, like modified contour, or just sometimes you would call this just contour, and it basically just means line. We didn't do shading, we did thick and thin line, we did dark and light line, and we played with just different colors as well. I hope you enjoyed this very simple, funky little lesson, and I hope you will try using line and different line quality on all sorts of different subjects, not just clothing. This is just a really fun one because you can kind of be imperfect and have things all wrinkly, and the line is very expressive when you're doing fabric and clothing and things of that nature. Thank you for joining me for that sketchbook prompt tutorial. We have one more left. We're going to work on a still life or something. I might change the subject matter, but a still life with only values. So moving away from line and into shading and values, and then we're done with our prompt list. So there is a YouTube tutorial for every single one of these prompts. You can get the prompt list for just a limited time on dottington.us, and then I'll be switching out my freebie on my website. But for now, it's over there. You can grab it and move and go through all the exercises yourself, following along with the YouTube tutorials. If by the time you check my website this isn't there, never fear. You can just go to the drawing playlist on my YouTube and you will find these all in order, and just look for the numbers and work your way through them that way. I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial series. I had a blast, and I'm really excited about the next series that we work on together. Subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed sketching with me today, and then subscribe so that you can catch the next tutorial series that we do together. Bye, until next time.